Hi, everybody, and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode, we're going to do something that we haven't done in a very long time, and that's how I would have booked. Only difference is there's a little bit of a twist on this one. Instead of it being a historical thing that happened and I go back and change and put my opinion on what they should have done, we're going to do something that hasn't happened yet and may never happen, and that's how I would have booked Bray Wyatt in AEW. So basically, we're going to book his debut here in AEW and what leads up to it and his first couple feuds in the company. That being said, the build starts off with Aleister Black trying to recruit Bryan Danielson into the House of Black. Danielson keeps telling him no. All the while, Danielson is building up, steam, building up momentum. We get a match about 2 weeks out from Double or Nothing, 2 weeks before the show, for a number one contender, Jay Lethal versus Bryan Danielson. During the match, Brody King comes down to ringside, distracts Bryan Danielson, ends up costing him the match. Jay Lethal hits a lethal injection, causing him to win, thus for furthering the feud or starting the feud between the House of Black and Daniel Bryan. On the next Dynamite, we see, or Bryan Danielson. I know I'm going to probably mess it up a million times in here, so just know I'm probably going to interchange Bryan Danielson and Daniel Bryan 100 times. The next Dynamite, Danielson comes out to the ring, cuts an interview with Tony Schiavone, says he's worked his whole life, he's done it all by himself. He's had, people got behind him. He said, but he sees in AEW that you can't go at it on your own. You have to have some kind of backup. Instead of dealing with the devil he doesn't know in Aleister Black, in the House of Black, he's going to deal with the devil he does know. And then he doesn't say the name, leaves little crumbs. We've seen with AEW that, like with the CM Punk return, they're willing to leave the crumbs out there for you to follow, for you to pick up on, that if you'll know what's going to happen well before it does happen. So he leaves that crumb out there, saying the devil kind of get people thinking, well, who could it be who from his past is going to help him? And there's few people that he's been aligned with, one of them, of course, Bray Wyatt. So the next thing we have, we come up to Double or Nothing. We have the House of Black, Brody King, and Aleister Black versus Jurassic Express for the tag team titles. In the match, the lights go out, confuses the House of Black. The House of Black, usually that's their thing to do. They look confused. Jurassic Express takes advantage of the confusion, end up winning the match. Again, we don't see too much. We just get that little piece in there, another little speck. The commentary doesn't know if there was an electrical issue or what the deal is or why that's happening. But the House of Black definitely know it's not them that caused it, and definitely know that there's something going on. The next thing we have coming off of Double or Nothing, we have Bryan Danielson doing an in-ring interview. He's talking about, again, how he has no friends here and how it's been a rough ride trying to make it to the top. No matter how much he wins, there always seems to be some kind of a faction in his way. Lights go out. House of Black, King and Black standing in front of him. Lights go out again. Bryan Danielson disappears. Then we see the lights go out one more time, and instead of the spotlight and the camera being on the ring, now the spotlight and the camera is on the ramp. We see a rocking chair sitting there, which catches fire. Obviously, again, planting the seeds, leaving the breadcrumbs, leaving the clues as to who's going to come be the backup for Daniel Bryan to help him against the House of Black, to help him go get further at AEW, to help him continue on. Coming from that, the next week on Dynamite, we see Daniel Bryan on Rampage, Daniel Bryan does an interview, says, on the next Dynamite, we're going to meet the devil. And there's, obviously the speculation. People start thinking, the fans are thinking they know who it is. Seems pretty obvious right now. And again, based off of the way they handled the CM Punk return or CM Punk debut, it's kind of the way they do things. They kind of let you figure it out before it happens. I mean, Hangman Page, we knew his title reign was going to happen probably a year before it did. On the next episode of Dynamite, it's rolling along as it normally would. We have a match between Brody King and Aaron Solo. Brody picks up the win over Aaron Solo. After he wins, we start to see a procession of children in choir shirts coming down to the ring. Lights go dim. The children light up candles that they're holding. All of a sudden, all the children start singing "He Has the Whole World in His Hands." We hear it over the PA system pumped in. Television screen or Titantron, whatever you want to call it. The video screen in the back comes on at the stage. We see Bray Wyatt, or Wyndham Rotunda, whatever you want to call him here. I'm going to say Bray Wyatt for the rest of the show just because it's easier, and much like you see me stumble over Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson, we're going to keep it easy for me. Bray Wyatt's on the screen. He does nothing but starts laughing. As he's laughing, Brody King is watching the monitor. Static's out. Brody King turns around, eats a knee to the face from Daniel Bryan. We go off the air. This all leads to Fyter Fest, which is a couple weeks after this, which at Fyter Fest, we have a tag team match. Bryan Danielson and Bray Wyatt versus Aleister Black and Brody King. Bray Wyatt and Daniel Bryan pick up the win after a hard-fought match. Bray Wyatt looking like the star of the two, carrying most of the match. After the match, Bray Wyatt and Daniel Bryan are standing there. Bray pulls him in, hits Sister Abigail, laughs, and kind of crawls out of the ring backwards. So we see, even with Daniel Bryan bringing Bray Wyatt into the company, Bray Wyatt is not someone he could trust. After that, we lead up to Fight for the Fallen, which we see Bray Wyatt's first actual match, his first solo match in the company, and it's against Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan and Bray Wyatt are going at it. House of Black comes down to the ring. They fight both of them off. Dark Order comes out to the ring. No one gets to help get the House of Black out of the way. Everyone assumes that the Dark Order is either going to be that's probably going to be with Bray Wyatt based on his connection to Brody Lee previously. However, Bray Wyatt doesn't take the bait. He gets distracted. Daniel Bryan hits the knee, puts on the yes lock, picks up the win to keep him going forward. Bray looks out, sees the Dark Order there. Basically starts getting very upset because he did not want them there. This wasn't his idea. Come to the next episode of Dynamite. Dark Order is shown, and they're asked why did they come out to help Bray. And they explain that Bray is a friend of our former leader. We thought he needed the help to get rid of the House of Black. That's why we came down. We find out Bray Wyatt has nothing to do with them. They did it out of respect for who he was, thus starting a feud with the Dark Order and Bray Wyatt, which kind of takes us all the way through the rest of the year as he wrestles the different members of the Dark Order, leading up to New Year's Revolution, or leading up to whatever. I don't think it was called Revolution. The New Year's show. At that point, Bray Wyatt's built himself up finally, He's got some quality wins over the members of the Dark Order, some other wins on other shows. At the New Year's show, you have Bray Wyatt, and then let's just call it one of the Battle of the Belt shows. Bray Wyatt's in a match for the TNT Championship against the TNT Champion at the time, which by that time, I'm going to say it's not going to be Sammy Guevara or Cody Rhodes, who are fighting over it now. However, I believe it's going to be, by that time, they're going to have the belt on someone like a Bobby Fish or Kyle O'Reilly. So, without booking that all the way out, let's just say Bray Wyatt's challenging for the TNT title. We'll put him against Jay Lethal, because that part we haven't booked out. But Jay Lethal has the TNT title. Bray picks up the win, gets the TNT title from Jay Lethal, thus building that, making Bray Wyatt a champion again, building him as someone that's serious and to be taken seriously in there. No longer do you have him attached to any of the silly gimmicks. He's just Bray Wyatt. He's gone back to more of the backwoods preacher type gimmick than the Fiend type gimmick. He has pieces of the Fiend there. There are elements of it that come into it, but it's been an evolution, much like we've seen with Bray Wyatt. He has the ability to evolve and change his character. However, he's been held back in every time he has by bad creative taking his plans and making them corny. But to me, that's how I would bring him in. That's how I would start his first couple feuds. He'd start off as a partner of Daniel Bryan, then he would feud with Daniel Bryan, lead into a feud with the Dark Order, which then would lead him to the TNT title, which he would win over a guy like Jay Lethal. It doesn't have to be Jay Lethal. I'm just putting him in here because when I wrote my notes, I just put he wins the TNT title and forgot to put someone there. So Jay, sorry. But hey, at least you got to run with the TNT title. So we see that going forward. Bray kind of becomes his own man. You have him all alone, built as a serious wrestler. Daniel Bryan got a little bit of the rub, got away from the world title scene, which is kind of something they're going to have to do to keep some guys that should always be in the title scene. They're going to have to find ways to keep them doing something else. The Daniel Bryans, the CM Punks, the Kenny Omegas when he comes back, Jon Moxley. These are guys that should always be in the title scene, so you kind of have to find ways to keep them out of it while other people go for the title. So to me, that's how I would do it. That's how I would book Bray Wyatt. Let me know what you think. Would you do something different? Would you have him start off somewhere else? Would you scrap the idea that he's tied to Daniel Bryan? Or Bryan Danielson? How would you do it? Let me know what you think. Hit me down here in the comments. Make sure you hit like and share, subscribe if you haven't. And if you've watched this long, I'm trying to do a thing where I'm judging retention on these videos. If you watch this to the end, please leave down in the comments the whole world. Just put whole world or the whole world or whatever you want to put. Just keep that in the comments so I know that you watched to the end. With that all being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been another episode of How I Would Have Booked.